Yep, I'm reviewing a book on pressure points. Hi guys, my name is Joe, and welcome to Fighting Words, the martial arts library. On this channel, I review martial arts books and talk about other martial arts related subjects. The subject for today's review is The Secret Art of Pressure Point Fighting by Vince Morris, published in 2008. Some background on the author. Mr. Morris is primarily known for his Shotokan karate background. He has also trained in judo. He has trained law enforcement and military personnel in the UK. Now, unlike a lot of material that I have on pressure point fighting, this book spends a lot of time debunking the sort of mysticism surrounding it. So, for those who are unfamiliar, a lot of pressure point theory used in martial arts is based on Chinese, and I think further back Indian, medical theory. And this is all sort of pre-modern. It's the idea that there are these energy channels that run through the body, and there are specific points on the human body that are more receptive to influencing what goes on when these energy channels relate to different internal organs. Like there's a heart channel and there's a lung channel and all that. Mr. Morris spends a lot of time just trying his best to debunk that. The way he views pressure points, there's a quote that I like, or an expression that I like. He says that it's like poison on the tip of the spear. The poison is useless without the spear. In other words, you can sort of think of it as the idea of pressure points as being sort of a bonus, but you have to have good fundamental technique in order to make stuff work. The book itself is roughly broken down into 3 different parts. One I would consider the overview. The other section, there's a combat application, and that is against common types of attacks. And finally, there is a kata and kata application section. Honestly, the overview section has the bulk of the writing. For instance, we get a section on the causes of knockouts. Also on the general overview of the function of nerves. And through that, we get a section on the various reflexes that people have, like the gag reflex or the flinch or startle reflex. A lot of Mr. Morris's overall strategy seems to be using these points to cause pain so that the body will reflexively react to that and open up an opportunity for something more like a knockout strike. Again, Mr. Morris includes a few chapters that have an emphasis on debunking sort of mysticism surrounding it. It's not a proper citation. He references some sources. And I think that that's valuable. I wish that they had been done more like, proper Chicago-style citations. But when he makes a claim about, well, in the 70s, when they sent Western doctors to witness the effects of acupuncture on patients who were under surgery, what they didn't know was that the surgery was also performed with modern anesthesia working through their system, being delivered to them. That's sort of an extraordinary claim, but he does have a reference to go along with that, which is something I appreciate. He does get to a section where he shows a chart that lists the common pressure points that he likes to use. Again, these line up with the more traditional, pressure point meridians. He's debunked the idea of meridians, but still uses them as a reference point for the places on the body that you want to hit. This section also includes a little in the way of blocking techniques, like something he calls the frisbee block, and also a more traditional karate technique, mawashi uke. The idea being that these techniques are used to strike points on the arm. He also has a section on the 22 rules of combat. Now, I think he has a full book by this title. In this section, what we are given is the rule in bold. For instance, some of these rules would be, don't rely on one technique, do not hesitate, things like that. And then they are generally elaborated upon with a sentence or two. And regardless of anything else in this book, I think that's a pretty valuable section. And finally, before we get into the actual physical techniques, we do get a few sections on training protocol and what it takes to retain knowledge. Again, he references some studies showing that the farther away you get from that thing that you trained, the less you'll remember it, which, duh. But at least there's an actual study associated with that. As far as the training protocols go, unlike some of the other pressure point guys out there, he's very adamant about not knocking people out. Don't knock out the people you're training with. There are some other protocols there as well. Once we get into the techniques, the combat application section, these are divided by the technique that the attacker uses. So, there's a thing on, wrist grabs, for example. These techniques cover common self-defense scenarios. I mentioned the wrist grabs. There's also things like bear hugs, being pinned while mounted, general strikes, stuff like that. A lot of the common responses will include things like, kicking the shins, pinching various sensitive points, striking a part of the arm, lung 5. He includes some headbutts in there. He also shows some joint manipulations. I would say that something that stands out, there's a lot of straight armbar type stuff from a standing position. The grabs that are used by the defender are preceded with a distraction. For instance, spitting at the opponent or yelling. And finally, we get into the kata section. He begins by showing applications for some of the more common moves that you will see throughout kata, like age uke, the rising block, and manji uke. And then he will show specific applications from selected kata. He demonstrates them from 3 different kata. The first in the Naihanchi or Teki series, Kankudai, and also Niseishi or Nijushiho. Same name for the same kata. 2 names for the same kata. As far as the pros go, my original art was karate, so I really gravitate toward kata application. That's been something that I've been looking strongly at for roughly the past 15 or 20 years. So if you practice, Itosu lineage kata, there will be some ideas for some kata application in here. I also like the fact that he will show multiple applications for the same movement. I think that that's really valuable. I also really like the intro where, again, not proper citations, but he is referencing things when it comes to, debunking the mysticism behind pressure points, as well as, check out these studies for understanding how people learn, that sort of part of it. And on the whole, I like how he really tries to rely on science as opposed to tradition and mysticism in this. As far as the cons go, I have to say that a lot of the self-defense techniques seem to rely more than I would like on pain compliance. I have observed, including personally over the years, that Pain, relying on the opponent to go, ouch, that hurt, is unreliable. Pain can be ignored if somebody is in an altered mental state or under the influence of drugs or adrenaline. They may not feel pain. So if your technique relies on your opponent to go, ow, then they might not do that, and your technique is bunk. It stops working, or needs to be modified, and it's difficult to do that on the fly. I should say that there are many techniques in this that don't rely necessarily on pain compliance, that sort of stick to the idea of a poison-tipped spear. So, when he's going to straighten out the arm, for that standing arm lock, he is sort of relying on hitting, the nerves in the back of the arm to get that extension going. You don't need to cause pain for that to be a good mechanical idea. And similarly, he will show, like kicking, like buckling the legs with a kick to the thigh. Again, that relies on good structure. You might hit a nerve and cause the guy to go, ow, that hurts. But there are a few things like, kicking into the shins or like, pinching the skin and stuff. I'm like, I don't know if that'll work. I don't see that as being reliable. So that's the biggest criticism I can give this book. So as far as recommendations go, as I mentioned, if you have a background in Itosu lineage kata, Shotokan, Shorin-ryu, Water-ryu, there might be some value in the kata application, the bunkai. I don't think it would be my primary source for self-defense material, but I think there's a lot of good supplementary material here. Like I said, a lot of the principles for self-defense, those 22 rules and stuff like that. Some of the techniques I think are good ideas. Some better than others, like I said, more of a supplementary system or a complementary system. Have something else in place. This can be an addition to another more reliable self-defense system. I also think that having the references, specifically when it comes to, the idea of debunking the mysticism surrounding, chi and pressure points and things like that, I think those are valuable to have. I think in this day and age, one could probably find a lot of them on one's own. But having a text that already references a few can also speed up that process. So that's all I have for this week. And if you guys would like to help out the channel or suggest a book to me, I would ask you to donate to my Ko-fi account, link in the description, and let me know what you want me to review by giving me money, because I'm not making any. All right, thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.